Hi, I'm David Esrati, and it's 4 o'clock time for our live stream town hall meeting that you can talk directly to your future congressman. And the whole idea of this is Mike Turner hasn't had a town hall in 10 terms, doesn't come and talk to the people in the community, so I am going to make sure that if you choose me as your congressman, I will fill you in every single day at what I did in Congress for you and what the issues are, and hear your input and take it to the people's house to have your concerns aired. So I just got back from the doctor, and he made me do a few things with my shoulder that my shoulder hasn't done since the surgery. So the sling's on, but that's okay. We're going to talk about what's on everybody's mind, and that seems to be the price of stuff. Now, I'd like to explain something to people who sit there and say, oh, this is Biden's fault, or oh, we need Republicans in office, or there's some other, thing at play here. Let me explain real clearly. It ain't the president's ability to raise the price of gas and lower the price of gas. It's not the president's ability or the House or the Senate to make a lot of these things happen, because we've basically said, oh, let the markets take care of themselves, and the markets have taken care of themselves. You know who's gotten rich and richer and richer and richer is the rich. The wealthiest part of our population has done exceedingly well since Donald Trump went into office, and we had this little minor hiccup called a global pandemic. Now, we had no leadership during the beginning of the pandemic. Trump wouldn't even admit that he'd had his vaccination. Trump wouldn't admit that he was stupid when he got COVID, and that he got the best medical care the world had at the time to get him through it. Our country can do amazing things with good leadership. I'm not saying that Joe Biden's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but I will say he inherited a shit sandwich, much like Barack Obama did after taking over from George W. Bush, who tanked the economy at a absolutely insane. It was a shambles. Now, the way Obama took care of things, I wasn't that impressed, because the people who caused these problems, the wizards of Wall Street, all those investment bankers who should have gone to prison for creating things called credit default swaps, they didn't see a day of jail time. It's funny, the rich rarely do in our country. The poor, on the other hand, they go to jail and prison by the handful. A friend of mine got 3 years for wire fraud for under $100,000. The grifter-in-chief, Donald Trump, stole $250 million at least from the general public, telling them that they'll support him for the Stop the Steal campaign, when he full out was told his election he'd lost, and there wasn't any arguing to be done. Talk about wire fraud. Place a bet. The black small businessman in Dayton will do more time behind bars than Donald Trump will. So, what happened during the pandemic? The pandemic was like going to war. The whole country had to focus on one thing: survival. And we did a really poor job of it compared to other industrialized nations, because we didn't have good leadership. We had an awful lot of people get sick, an awful lot of people die. I've heard people say, oh, we wrote this off or wrote that off as them dying. It doesn't matter. They died. And a lot of them, believe it or not, a lot of people in healthcare died or got out of healthcare because they didn't want to die. Yes, we're an unhealthy nation, but you take 1 million people out of the workforce, and then you put everybody else on stand down, the economy goes to shit. So what did we do? We printed a bunch of money and we gave it to people. Now, was that the right thing to do? Yes, it was. We had a moral responsibility to take care of the poorest people in this country. And yes, I know a lot of small landlords took a beating when their rents weren't getting paid. I know there's a lot of people that suffered. But I'll tell you who didn't suffer, the rich. And what do the rich do? And what has gone up faster than the rate of inflation for anything other than maybe insulin? The cost of running for political office has gone up. They spent $80 million on the Senate race in Ohio. I don't know how much was the final toll on the race for governor in Ohio. The fact is, if our government really cared about electing the right people, the right brains, the right minds, the good leaders, not the best ones money could buy, we'd have a voter information system that took care of it with staged debates, providing websites where candidates and voters could answer questions and find out who their best match is, full information on voting records and who got what and who paid for what and who got money from whom. All that stuff could be online. We could have a complete system of tracking who's working for you and who's working for the military-industrial complex, the healthcare people, the prison-industrial complex, you name it. In Dayton, it's been the demolition companies for years. We all know that there has been a lot of money given to demolition contractors in Dayton. And those demolition contractors give it back to the people they want to have in office to give them the jobs. The truth hurts, people. We've been getting screwed for a long time. A long, long time. And it ain't going to change as long as you keep electing people who spend $1 million to get reelected every time or more. We've got to stop that. It's not about selling off power for money. It's about representing the people. And that's why I'm here every day to have a conversation with you. And anybody who's online, I encourage you to pipe in and say hi, put a message up. I'll acknowledge you. I'd like to see, when I come on every day, hundreds of you, thousands of you checking in to find out what's important, especially once I'm in Congress, because you haven't had straight from the horse's mouth in a long time. You've had a lot from the horse's other end, from Mike Turner, about how he's saving Wright-Patterson Air Force Base all by himself. Trust me, that base will go on long past Mike Turner, and there's nothing I'm going to do if I get elected to hurt Wright-Patterson or our local economy. But I am going to say we're going to spend our money on weapons that make sense, not on ones that don't. And we're going to make sure that we spend our money on things that work. Now, they just announced they're sending another $1 billion over to Ukraine. Anybody think there might be some connection between prices of things and a war, cutting off Europe's breadbasket and making all the European nations search for new energy sources after getting it cheap from the Russians for so long? Could that be part of the problem? Or could it be that China still has a problem with COVID and keeps shutting down, and that the few shipping companies that have control all the shipping across the Pacific have basically got a monopoly and have been screwing people and charging more and those sorts of things? Or is it that we never really made a real effort to energy independence in this country, even after being taught, should have been learned the lesson in 1973? Or was it 71? I don't know. I was really young then. But the reality is we still depend on shipping a ton of our goods by truck when other countries use trains. Trains move a lot more weight, a lot cheaper, and a lot faster than a truck does. We should have an electrified rail system for moving goods and services across this country that can't be beat. We should. We don't. Instead, we farm it out to dirty, polluting trucks with poor drivers getting overworked, driving long distance for no good reason at all. So let's see what else has gone wrong. So people are wondering, well, why aren't we pumping more oil out? Well, because during COVID, nobody was driving. And we let a lot of wells go dry. And wells only sort of work when you keep pumping them. And then you have to invest more to drill more. And they weren't making a lot of money while they weren't pumping oil. So now they're not pumping more oil. There was a point during COVID when oil prices were actually negative because we ran out of place to store all the oil we weren't using. That is a pretty good reminder to business that it's not all sunshine and fun and games. Now, if we'd had real leadership, we would have done what we did during World War II, which was enact price controls and rationing of some things and structuring things so that you couldn't gouge people for things like, oh, I don't know, N95 masks, toilet paper. I mean, we have a country where greed is good and taking care of your fellow neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, the people in your community isn't. We need to shift that. We need to care more about each other. The cost of a homeless person is more than the cost of putting them in a house, especially if it's a jailhouse. The cost of mental health care is more in a prison than it is in a mental health facility. The cost of taking care of what happens when you ration your insulin is way more than figuring out a way to get insulin down to $24 a vial instead of $1,000 a vial. But no, Mike Turner voted against the Affordable Insulin Act. There are lots of things that need price controls. There are lots of things that we should have done, could have done, would have done, but didn't do because there are people like Mitch McConnell who want to make money for the people that keep them in power. I've got a few friends that are exceedingly well off. And I'm sorry, a lot of you that think making $1 million a year is rich, no, that's not rich anymore. Rich has gotten to a whole new level. Private planes, all kinds of things. They have their own private security, private armies, private cooks, all that stuff. It's gotten to the point where there are 2 Americas, or maybe even 3, and only one of them is doing well. That's not the land of equal opportunity. That's the land of equal opportunity to steal. We have to fix this. We have to start figuring tax policies and programs and economic programs and figure out why we even have a health insurance industry when what we really want is health care. We have to stop allowing hospitals to think that GoFundMe is a way to deal with cancer. We've got to figure out a way to take care of Americans. And does that mean shutting down the borders from illegal immigrants? Well, not so much. Does it mean we stop the drug trade coming across the border? Hell yes. Does it mean that we stop sending jobs out of the country because they have no labor protections? Hell yes. Do we punish companies that send their work overseas? Yes. Do we punish companies that pay their CEOs more than 20 times what their lowest paid workers make? Yes, because it takes a whole team to make it happen. Jeff Bezos isn't loading boxes for Amazon. The people that do that, those are the real heroes, and they deserve to have safe working environment, get paid a good living wage, have health care, all those things. There is nothing stopping this country from solving these problems other than people voting for the wrong people. All right. I haven't seen anybody tap in here, ask any questions, say hi. I'm going to tell you this. We can fix this, but it isn't by adding 0.75 boost to the interest rates right now. That is going to destroy poor people with their credit card rates going up. It's going to make home ownership that much more expensive for those that were just getting back on their feet. It doesn't help us to have higher interest rates. What it helps us is if we have higher taxation rates on the people making a ton of money playing games in the Wall Street casino that just keeps churning cash around and claiming that companies that have no real assets are worth $1 gazillion. How is Twitter worth more than something like Ford Motor Company? How is Tesla, which is tiny compared to General Motors, worth more than General Motors? How did General Motors drop the ball so bad on EVs? And why are they playing catch up now? I'm going to tell you one thing. This is a small thing, because as one person in a sea of 435 other people, I can't do everything. But one thing I'll be sure of is if there's an electric car sold in this country and it can't be charged at every single charger, if they think they're going to have a proprietary system, they're wrong. We're going to make Tesla provide adapters to everybody, so you can, every Tesla owner, so that they can plug in to any charger, anytime, anywhere, because we're going to build a network of electric car chargers, and we're going to make sure it's there, because we need to get away from being an oil-based economy and polluting and everything else. We need to increase solar, hydro, wind power. A friend of mine says we need to do clean nuclear, but I'm not so sure after Fukushima and Chernobyl. But we can do things like no other country can. I believe in America. I believe in Americans. What I don't believe in is the pay-to-play politics. And bam, I see a note from my good friend Kirby. The government doesn't ship jobs to China, the corporations do. However, the government has done nothing to make it painful for them to do so. Bingo. We can change this, we can fix it, and we can make this country one for everyone. We can do this. It just requires us to stop letting people buy us. And I thank you for telling me the audio is in the left channel only. I know who to blame for that. We'll get it fixed. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I'm signing off. I'll be here again tomorrow for audio on both channels. Thank you so much. And I don't know who Rusker Dax is, but welcome and thanks for the tip. So if there's anything else, get it in quick, because otherwise I'll see you tomorrow. If you got other questions, you can put them in the comments and I'll talk about them tomorrow. Thank you.